Michelle Obama is slammed for whining about costs in the White House. Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. This is her speaking with, is this the diaries of a CEO, right? So, Rob, if you can play this clip, this is her talking about how expensive it was to live in the White House.
In a fiery and unrelenting media takedown, Megyn Kelly and Patrick Bet-David joined forces on air to dissect and deconstruct the highly polished public image of former First Lady Michelle Obama, launching what can only be described as a full-scale rhetorical offensive against the cultivated narrative surrounding her legacy. The catalyst? Michelle's recent appearance on the Diary of a CEO podcast, where she again painted her years in the White House and her broader life experience as fraught with emotional strain, public burden, and domestic dissatisfaction. From the first moment, Kelly honed in on the apparent contradiction between Michelle's status and her constant lamenting tone, mocking the notion that being married with children and living in the most famous residence in the world could ever constitute a source of true hardship for someone as globally admired and financially insulated as Michelle.
There's many natural reasons why marriage, infertility, trying to have kids makes things difficult. It's like, I try to tell couples, of course it's hard.
Kelly portrayed the former First Lady as detached and performative, asserting that Michelle's repeated insistence on the darkness of her personal experiences, particularly in the context of parenting and marriage, doesn't just ring hollow, it alienates. According to Kelly, statements like "kids mess you up" and depictions of motherhood as a chore rather than a joy offer a grim and unrelatable picture of womanhood from someone who, in theory, should be uplifting millions. The criticism was not simply rooted in Michelle's tone, but in her perceived duplicity, a duality where she complains about the costs of living in the White House while simultaneously reaping extraordinary personal and financial rewards from her time in public service. This leads directly into the second major thread of the takedown, where Patrick Bet-David supplied financial context. He outlined with near-clinical precision how the Obamas' net worth leapt from $1.3 million in 2007 to at least $12.2 million by the time they left the White House in 2016, with current estimates placing their fortune anywhere from $70 million to $250 million. According to Patrick, Michelle's public grumbling about paying for her children's travel on Air Force transportation or covering grocery expenses in the White House falls flat when juxtaposed against this immense financial trajectory.
So their net worth is, let's write this down, this is pre-White House, their collective net worth was $1.3 million. Can you go to where their net worth was in 2016 when they're done being presidents? Okay.
He highlighted the irony of presenting this narrative of financial sacrifice and stress to the public, while simultaneously signing multi-million-dollar book deals and inking content contracts with Netflix and Spotify, moves that all but confirm her status as a political and cultural powerhouse, not a passive participant in the political arena. Megyn Kelly, for her part, delved deeper into the psychological packaging of Michelle's image, arguing that the former First Lady has been systematically airbrushed into a hybrid of pop icon and saint, beyond the reach of criticism. To Kelly, Michelle's every move, be it an Instagram post, a carefully lit interview, or a children's book launch, is choreographed for emotional impact. Her persona is not built for relatability, but for admiration, to the point where any deviation from unconditional praise is immediately labeled as insensitivity or ideological malice. Kelly ridiculed this emotional Teflon, calling out the strategic layering of sentimentality and media production that shields Michelle from the same scrutiny applied to virtually every other public figure.
2016, so their net worth, as expensive as it was, they went from being 1.3 million to 12.2 million. So that's 10xing your net worth in 8 years. And that's not bad.
She emphasized that crying on cue during a memoir interview or reflecting on personal trauma in front of a studio camera might make for good content, but it doesn't automatically exempt someone from being questioned, especially when they occupy an outsized role in shaping the national conversation. While Kelly operated with a satirical scalpel, Patrick Bet-David took a more strategic and systemic approach, analyzing Michelle Obama not as a celebrity or an author, but as a long-term political operator. He suggested that Michelle's continual insistence that she has no interest in running for office is itself part of the broader illusion. According to Patrick, every podcast appearance, every carefully coordinated documentary, every campaign about school lunches or children's health is part of a sprawling infrastructure designed to keep Michelle omnipresent, just below the surface, but never out of the frame. He argued that the media's refusal to interrogate her motives or acknowledge this pattern of influence is not accidental but calculated. Michelle has become what he terms the emergency Beyoncé button for the Democratic Party, a figure so well-liked and so uncontested in the public eye that merely floating her name in 2024 scenarios changes the political landscape.
Guess what happens when it all works out right? You know what you end up with? Babies. Little people with their own sense of everything. They mess you up. You love them dearly, but they're a hassle.
Her branding is not just cultural, it's electoral, ideological, and generational, making her one of the most important unelected figures in the United States today. As the conversation escalated, both Kelly and Bette David homed in on the victimhood narrative that, in their view, has become Michelle's hallmark. Kelly in particular noted that Michelle often positions herself as misunderstood, attacked, or unfairly burdened, despite sitting atop one of the most powerful personal brands in the world. She mocked the emotional refrains of "What about me?" and "Why isn't anyone asking how I'm doing?" as disingenuous pleas for validation from someone who, by all metrics, has been showered with accolades, financial success, and cultural reverence. Bette David echoed this, pointing out that in almost any other context, be it business, politics, or entertainment, such uncritical adoration would be deemed unhealthy or suspicious. Yet in Michelle's case, even mild dissent is often interpreted as hostility or bigotry, insulating her from real-world accountability and making it nearly impossible to publicly challenge her without backlash.
Barack used to say, if I ever needed to win an election, I put Michelle on stage. I've heard that many times. Who are you inspiring with that message you're giving? Think about another younger African-American girl that's listening to this. Do you think you inspired her to want to be a first lady? What do you think you did?
The pair also decried what they see as the media's role in reinforcing this immunity. Kelly argued that Michelle Obama is surrounded by a near-impenetrable press bubble, where journalists treat her as an untouchable figure akin to royalty. She described how mainstream media outlets fawn over her every move, spin every quote into inspiration, and dismiss legitimate criticism as either anti-woman or anti-black, leaving no room for honest debate. Patrick expanded on this by suggesting that this press bubble is not just rooted in admiration, but utility. To him, Michelle is protected because she serves multiple purposes. She's a cultural influencer, a political safety valve, and a commercial powerhouse, all in one. The media, he argued, sees her not as a subject of coverage, but as an asset to be managed, a long-term investment whose image must be preserved at all costs for maximum narrative return. Even Michelle's newer ventures, such as launching a podcast with her brother, came under scrutiny. Kelly and Bette David viewed the podcast as yet another entry in the Obama Omnipresence playbook, designed not for casual listening but for brand perpetuation. From TikTok teasers to interviews with high-profile guests, they described it as part of a continuous soft campaign.
And we're back to our daily segment of Michelle Obama's terrible, terrible life. Boo effing who. She went on a podcast called Diary of a CEO. It's kind of rings a bell like a founder kind of situation. And once again, wants you to know how awful it is to be married with children.
An attempt to stay culturally relevant without appearing overtly political. Patrick compared it to hiding spinach in brownies. The messaging is ideological, but it's delivered under the guise of storytelling and relatability. He emphasized that what makes this strategy particularly effective is its subtlety. By never declaring direct political ambition, Michelle avoids the backlash that might come with such a move, while still remaining one of the most influential voices in American public life. As the discussion reached its crescendo, both commentators issued a broader warning. They argued that Michelle Obama represents a new kind of political persona, one that merges influence with unaccountability, inspiration with immunity. She is omnipresent yet untouchable, influential yet immune from challenge. Kelly asserted that this imbalance is corrosive to the democratic process because it stifles honest dialogue and disincentivizes questioning. She urged viewers to remember that public life requires public scrutiny, and that being inspirational does not entitle someone to operate without criticism. Bette David, ever the strategist, concluded that Michelle's greatest asset is not her charisma, her resume, or even her popularity.
Their net worth today, 2025. What is the net worth today?
It's got to be worth a couple $100 million. No?
It's two numbers. You see 70 million to 250 million dollars. So 70 million to 250 million dollars. If you type in a couple other places, you'll see 100 million. You'll see 70 million. But you'll see a couple ranges.
It's her ability to make people believe she has no interest in power while quietly consolidating it across industries, generations, and ideologies. Ultimately, what Kelly and Bette David revealed in their joint deconstruction is not a personal vendetta, but a demand for transparency. They acknowledged Michelle Obama's intelligence, grace, and communication skills, traits that have made her an undeniable force in modern culture. But they pushed back against the mythology, the curated perfection, and the media complicity that have turned her into something more symbolic than real. To them, the danger lies not in Michelle's existence as a powerful woman, but in the public's inability, or unwillingness, to ask what she's doing with that power. By the end of their commentary, one message was clear. Michelle Obama is not just a former First Lady. She's a brand, a movement, and potentially the architect of a silent campaign. And if no one's willing to look past the shine, they argued, we might wake up one day and realize she never stopped running, not for office, but for influence itself.